first interaction with St. Mark's happened about 15 years ago. It took me a couple visits to this lovely cathedral to put it all together, though, that I had actually benefited from the love and kindness of this church all those years ago. Whilst I was finishing up my undergraduate studies and preparing for law school, the money that I had saved up for my final semester ran out before the semester did. I was referred to Hildegard's food pantry to help me close the gap and keep my kids fed. And I didn't know anything at all about St. Mark's at that time, but what I remember very well was the welcoming, respectful, and dignified outpouring of generosity that I received from the folks there. I was not shamed. I was not asked why I needed a bit of help. I was not made to prove or earn my worthiness of the help, and that stuck with me for many years. So when I came to St. Mark's for the first time, and then I realized that this was where Hildegard's Pantry is located, I immediately found a soft spot in my heart for that work. And a seed that was planted many years ago sprouted. St. Mark's is a place where good work happens, and not merely to gain converts, but to serve Christ as we see him in each of our fellow humans, whoever they may be. And that's why I consider it a great privilege to support these efforts with our donations, knowing that this is the literal work of God in the world to look after each other in our times of need.
2 years ago, we were in the middle of a years-long evolution that led us to realize that we needed a different kind of church experience. It was very distressing, and to be honest, I didn't have confidence that we could find what we needed. Then that spring, Ron saw a post that made by one of his Facebook friends with an invitation to Holy Week services at St. Mark's. That was a life-changing media post for us. That was when we first attended, and right away we noticed positive uniquenesses that drew us here. For one thing, the worship is extremely joyful, especially on Easter Sunday, but also every time we attend. I feel like the services are exactly what I need to be able to come with whatever worries or heaviness I might have from the week, reconnect with God in a loving and hopeful way, and be ready to go out again for another week. A short time after we first attended, Father Tyler sent out an email that included a message about radical welcome. I had never heard that phrase before, but when I read it, it was like that was what I was waiting to hear. It's a theme that's been taught frequently by all of the clergy at St. Mark's, and I feel like it's not just an idea, but very much a part of our congregation. I love it that all of us can come here and really feel welcomed, valued, and loved by each other, and especially by God.
I literally believe it is a miracle that we ended up at St. Mark's to help us through a faith transition that so many of us have experienced. And it's not my intention to dwell on or be critical of former religious communities of which I was a part, because surely they provided me with some very good first half of life lessons and some structures for which I am grateful. But over the last few years, I have struggled to break free from a certain mindset and conception of God, and into a faith that is centered on the good news of God's radical love for all of humanity. The timeless and transcendent worship at St. Mark's feeds and speaks to my soul on a whole other level. The messages that we hear each week at St. Mark's challenge me to be a better follower of Christ, and we are very blessed to have inspiring and inspired teachers of the faith to help us along. In fact, it is here at St. Mark's that I've come to have a better understanding of the incarnation of Jesus Christ as the expression of God's desired oneness with us. I actually began experimenting with daily prayer from the English Book of Common Prayer before I ever stepped into an Episcopal church or St. Mark's or even realized the connection. But the liturgies and the prayers, both here in the cathedral and as I pray at the daily office at home, give refuge to my soul. At St. Mark's, I find a peaceful place to listen to God. And I've discovered and been led in my walk with a God that is much bigger and way more fulfilling than I ever knew. I have come to love that here we find the freedom to live in the mysteries of God, to sit in this beautiful cathedral and experience God's presence, and then be sent out each week to be a part of the love of God and building up of our little corner of the kingdom of heaven.
On that point, we love that the initiatives of St. Mark are actual and not just theoretical. When we began attending, we noticed frequent mention of St. Mark's ministries at Hildegard's pantry in the Point, and the coordination of efforts to host unhoused members of our community on the coldest nights of the year. I love that there are real opportunities to give and serve in meaningful ways. I feel like these are all things that should be part of Christian worship, but they're actually not that easy to find. They're things that make St. Mark's unique and special.
I've actually had the privilege of worshiping in some of the very great and beautiful cathedrals of Anglicanism in England and elsewhere. But I have the real blessing every single week of being part of worship in my very, very favorite one right here at St. Mark's. The beauty that surrounds us here right now brings me immense joy. It brought to mind a comment from the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, who said that beauty and truth belong together in the discovery of God. That beauty expands our hearts into joy, and that by experiencing the beautiful in art or in nature or in church, we have our rather boring and prosaic habits of mind and heart broken open, and our horizons broadened. Sitting in the cathedral is a constant source of beauty for me, and it's one that draws me into God's joy each and every service that I attend. And I also know that, practically speaking, caring for the fabric of this great cathedral is neither easy nor cheap.
Ron and I have always believed in giving to our church, but at St. Mark's we are not just hoping that the money's being used for something good. We can see the difference it makes in this congregation and in our immediate community, and that's why I believe 100% in every dollar we pledge to St. Mark's.
So this year we have decided to increase our pledge by 25%. And it brings us real joy to do so, to know that we are a part of something much bigger, something that is so meaningful to so many people. I love knowing that we can help look after this beautiful cathedral, as well as those in our community who find peace and refuge either within its walls or in its external ministries. And we hope that you can join us in making a pledge for 2026.